Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are discussing the current reward ship in the paid line of the event pass and why I think you should definitely get it. The answer to that is quite simply that it's a pretty darn good ship, because this time around Wargaming went in through the West Virginia 41 into the event pass. A very fitting ship, as of course this is the update launching the new line of American destroyers in early access. And the West Virginia 41, it's a really interesting ship that I've liked since her initial release all them years ago. So in today's video we're going to go through the West Virginia 41 and why I do think it is very much worth coughing up the $10 worth of doubloons to acquire her. But first, what else do you get in the event pass? Because believe it or not, you don't only just get the West Virginia 41, you do get everything in the paid event pass and the non-paid event pass. Of course, with the caveat that you complete the event pass right. So, in addition to the West Virginia 41, you do get all the goodies that should be, scrolling by on screen right now. The highlights of these goodies are 4 French squadron containers, quite a number of green economic bonuses, an additional 6,000 coal to the, additional 12,000 coal to the coal that you earn in the free pass, an additional 600 steel on top of the steel that you get in the free pass, and a number of blue economic bonuses as well, along with a couple of other things along the way. So you get all of that good stuff and a ship for 10 bucks. That's a pretty good deal right then and there. But of course, most of you just care about the ship naturally. So the West Virginia 41, what do it be? Well, the West Virginia 41 be the old alpha hull for the Colorado. Believe it or not, back in the day, Wargaming used to make you grind through these stock hulls that were quite different from the, the B or the C hull by the time you got to, the end of the grind for the ship. And it wasn't like, oh, it had slightly less AA. Oh, it had, 1 or 2 less secondary gun mounts. No, you went from this to the what's now the Bravo hull on the Colorado. So that's pretty wild back in the day. And what's really funny too is if you go back, we can't anymore because they nuked the forums, but if you can find maybe some old Reddit posts or some really old YouTube videos, there used to be players that would swear up and down that the stock hulls were better than the upgraded hulls. So like people would run the World War I hull on like their tier 5 battleships, because a lot of battleships in tier 5 that they served in World War I, they went on to serve in World War II, and some players would rather the secondaries, because you used to have like a gajillion secondaries in some of these ships of the World War I hulls. So they would use those hulls instead of the upgraded hulls. So yeah, pretty fun time. But then Wargaming realized that they could go ahead and carve out these hulls upgrades that were different and sell them as premium ships, and here we are with the West Virginia 41. So that's what it is. As you may notice, it doesn't have the giant torpedo blisters that the Colorado has on it nowadays, which makes it so chunky, right? So you don't have the torpedo blisters, and of course there's some changes here and there between the Colorado and the West Virginia 41, but the biggest change is that the West Virginia 41 is a tier 6 ship, while the Colorado is a tier 7 ship. So you get tier 6 matchmaking and not tier 7 matchmaking, which oddly enough, when the West Virginia 41 came out, I was like, ooh, dang, I get tier 6 matchmaking, which means I don't have to deal with those tier 9 games. For long ago, before super ships were a thing, tier 9 games happened, and you would, get like a couple of tier 9 ships, a bunch of tier 8s, and then some very unfortunate tier 7 ships that would get sucked up into those tier 9 games that would just get absolutely bullied by those tier 8 and those tier 9 ships. But if you were in a tier 6 ships, obviously you wouldn't have to deal with getting bullied by tier 9 ships. The power differential between like a tier 7 and a tier 9 ship, in my opinion, is much greater than that between a tier 6 and a tier 8 ship. So not only did you get that sweet tier 6 matchmaking back in the day, but you got it with 16-inch guns. And not just any 16-inch guns, but 16-inch guns that can actually hit something. Most of you have heard me go on and on and on and on about how Warspite is an excellent tier 6 premium ship because she has more average than accurate 15-inch guns at tier 6. Now imagine that, but having 16-inch guns at tier 6. And that right there is what you get with the West Virginia 41. Now, don't get me wrong, they aren't laser accurate by any standards, but for a Tier 6 battleship, they're more than workable. And what's really nice about having 16-inch guns at Tier 6 is that not only do you get to, of course, bully the crap out of everything when you're top tier, because you don't care about armor, since you overmatch anything that's important in the Tier 6 matchmaking bracket, talking about, Tier 6 down at least in that bracket. You also get to hang in there with the big boys when you get double up tiered to Tier 8, because 16-inch guns at Tier 8 are still quite large guns. They're not, of course, overly large by Tier 8 standards, but they are, most battleships start to get 16-inch guns around that Tier 7, Tier 8 mark, so you can hang with the big boys when you get there based on your gun size alone. Which means when you get double up tiered in the West Virginia 41, it's much less of an issue than, compared to another Tier 6 battleship. Now, I'm not saying it's going to, come top of the leaderboard every time when it gets double up tiered, but the match you're watching in the background is a pretty good example of, a pretty average West Virginia 41 game when you get double up tiered. And keep in mind, too, this is like the worst of the worst situation when you get double up tiered. Not only am I double up tiered to Tier 8, it's a CV and a double submarine game, which means I have to be very careful about where I go in the West Virginia 41, because while I might have 16-inch guns, this is an old alpha hull Colorado, which means, of course, the armor is thinner, and the AA is theoretical, mostly. So I have to be very careful about where I go. It's a double up tiered game. I can't be too aggressive in the first place, but I also have to worry about submarines and CVs, right? So, given all that, and then, spoiler alert, this is a blowout match, I think the end results speak pretty well for themselves about how well the West Virginia 41 can hang in these double up tiered games. But of course, you do give up a bit from Colorado in order to get the 16-inch guns at Tier 6. Of course, you don't have the improved AA like I mentioned. I know the AA on Colorado isn't overly fantastic, but it's more than what the West Virginia 41 has. And given that you are in that Tier 6 matchmaking bracket, of course you're going to run into a lot of Tier 6 CVs, so we got to deal with that. She is, of course, sluggish, although Colorado is too, but you do actually get a pretty good turning circle radius and a fairly quick rudder shift time for a battleship with the West Virginia 41, so that makes dealing with submarines a little bit better. You're still stuck at a 20 knot top speed, which, while is a pretty big pain in the Colorado, it's less of a pain here because, when you are in a normal Tier 6 game, it's not as big of a speed gap between you and the faster battleships at Tier 6, so that's, I guess, less of an issue here. And of course, you don't have the, torpedo blisters that the Colorado has, which, while that not only leads to, of course, less torpedo protection, you also lose the kind of spaced armored effect that you get with torpedo blisters that are, ridiculously big. So, yeah. But also, too, oddly enough, the West Virginia 41 is still fairly tanky because her Citadel is low. It's still a dreadnought, right? So she's still a fairly tanky battleship, just, of course, you don't have that torpedo protection like you do on the Colorado. And while you get the same guns as the Colorado, the parameters, unfortunately, aren't exactly the same. You do have less range than the Colorado with a 16.1 kilometer base range. Granted, you do get the American plotting room module, so you can get that out, but if you don't take that for whatever reason, you have a very, very short main battery gun range versus the Colorado, who has, I believe it's 18.8 kilometers base. You also have less Sigma than the Colorado. Colorado has 2.0 Sigma. The West Virginia 41 only has 1.8, which is still fairly good, again, by Tier 6 standards. So that definitely helps with keeping the shells, mostly where you want to go with the West Virginia 41. So, yeah, but I mean, again, you still get Colorado's guns at Tier 6. Pretty big deal, in my humble opinion. As far as how she plays, she's going to play like, you're not going to believe this, the Colorado, which is, of course, a mid-range battleship. So it's a great commander trainer not only for you, but of course for American battleship commanders, because the build you're going to put it on your West Virginia 41 is going to be useful on any of the standard American battleships. So by standard American battleships, I mean like the Montana line, the Vermont line, Alabama, any of the non-secondary and non-hybrid American battleships. The build you're going to use the West Virginia 41, which I should have shown at the start of the video, is going to work on them. So good commander trainer there. Good for getting used to how the Colorado plays and how most American battleships play. Because again, the Montana line, the Vermont line, they're mid-range battleships, so you can get a good taste of that here with the West Virginia 41. So good pickup all the way around, in my humble opinion. You know, you get the goodies from the event pass, you get the West Virginia 41. Most of you, if you've played somewhat regularly this patch, you probably have already passed up the 10th stage of the event pass, which is where the West Virginia 41 is located. So shouldn't be a big deal. You just cough up the $10 worth of doubloons and you can get her and the other goodies with the event pass thus far, and you still get, if you complete it, the rest of the goodies in the event pass as well. So my opinion, great deal on a great tier 6 premium ship. And this ship will also be removed from the Santa Container event, which is happening after the anniversary event this year. So you are pulling this ship out of that container, making space for a ship that you do not have in the Santa crate for you. And keep in mind too, with Wargaming giving us 32,000 free doubloons in the anniversary event, you know, there's a good chance a good amount of you guys watching this are going to turn around and use those 32,000 doubloons in the Santa Container event. So you have an opportunity to get a good ship here, clear up a spot in a Santa Container, and get some goodies along the way. So good deal in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you have the West Virginia 41, what do you think about her? If you've picked her up in the event pass, how have your experience has been with her so far? I hope you guys enjoyed and got some useful information out of this video. Reminder, if you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and while you're down there, why not subscribe to the channel as well to be made aware of these daily Warships videos, which contain reviews, go over deals like we do in this video, and news about the game. So hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.